Well, YouTube, it's about that time. It's come to an end. Nintendo Power. Never thought I'd ever see this happen. So I just wanted to go over just some basic issues that I have, just that I pulled out of nowhere. I was a subscriber for about 10 years, about 10 to 15 years off and on. And I'd gotten so many great deals and great offers from Nintendo Power, some of which were not offered anywhere else. And it was really such a huge magazine at the time. No other magazine other than GamePro and GameFan. There was a couple magazines that were coming out, EGM at the time, but Nintendo Power was always the first main big front runner for magazines regarding video games. It really does break my heart to hear about this, just because my own personal past with Nintendo. Obviously a huge Nintendo fan ever since I was 6 at the time, and my grandfather got me a Nintendo, and I loved playing. It was great. I mean, I got Super Mario Brothers, and I got Metroid, and you know, some of the later titles I ended up getting, like Mega Man, Zelda, and I just loved the Nintendo systems, and I just loved the creativity. I loved everything about it. And by far and wide, I was definitely a Nintendo fanboy growing up. And then as I grew up, I noticed that, wait a minute, there's other games that exist other than not only the ones that Nintendo made, but also for other systems that are actually great games. So I wanted to take just a little time and review Nintendo Power. What was, what is, and what could have been. So the first issue that I have is one of the, I believe this is the latest issue, or one of the latest issues. And even at the end of their reign, Nintendo Power was unveiling brand new things that weren't being unveiled anywhere else. This was an article about Castlevania Lords of Shadow Mirror of Fate, and it was a great article. I love what they did with the magazine. I bought this issue just for this article, pretty much, because I'm so huge into Castlevania. So, I mean, we got to preview some of the art, and we got never before heard articles with the reviews of the game, just previews of what's going on. Fantastic artwork. And we even got a little history, which is nice, because what's nice about the magazine is that when you look at Nintendo Power and you look at things like this and you see how much effort they've put into it, you can look back on the things that they're talking about for the history and be like, holy shit, I remember getting that issue for Super Castlevania 4. That issue with the awesome cover, and for whatever reason I received 2 in 1 month of the same issue, but I still got excited. That's what Nintendo Power did. That's what Nintendo Power did for fans. The fact that it's gone now, it's just so sad. It feels like a part of Nintendo has died, that it'll never come back. Never. This is it. So this is one of the later issues. Here's some of the guides that Nintendo Power would come out with. I actually just bought this again, used, at Game Exchange for like $3-4 or whatever. And this Nintendo Power was really good about coming out with guides right when the game launched, and you would be able to see that it was made by Nintendo Power. So they had all the access to everything. They came out with everything, and the maps, the posters, everything that came with the guides was just so thorough and so, you know, deep with what they were talking about. I remember these, the player's guide for all the games, and you'd have the maps for everything, and you'd be able to see the layout, see what's coming up in the game. And this was pretty much most of the games that were out on Game Boy at the time. So they had a Game Boy one, they had an NES one, and they had a Super NES one, and I actually have all of them. I kept them throughout the years. This was the original one that I had when I was a kid. It was the Game Boy one. Here's the Super Nintendo one, top secret. And what's funny is, I remember writing in this book to have all the information that I needed. Look, here's freaking piece of paper that I wrote down some information on. I don't even know what this is. It's just like fucking numbers and math and shit. I don't even know. But I remember just loving these books. They were so in-depth and they had as much information as you could possibly need. This was before GameFAQs. This was before the internet. You had to wait for this. When this came out, this was like godsend right here. This was like God came down and said, yo, you want some tips? Shit. Strider? Let me give you the code. HLDJ PIGH GHCH. That's gonna take you to China. There you go. So that's top secret. This one's a little beat up. This is the NES Atlas, and this had every map to every game. I mean, I haven't even beaten Castlevania 3 like ever. It's a great game. I just haven't beaten it. And I have the map for it right here. I could see what's going on. This is actually what helped me beat Dracula, Castlevania 2 Simon's Quest. This is it right here. I've even written down here Dennis Woods and the Sixth Tree. I think you had to throw the garlic or something. I don't know, whatever. But this is what helped me. This map helped me beat this game. And this was the only way I was going to get through the game. And what's awesome is all the people that say that they hate this game, and I'm going to go into a Castlevania 2 review later in October, but everybody that says that they hated this game, this magazine, this strategy guide that I have from my childhood was what helped me defeat and beat this game. And what really makes it one of my favorite Castlevania games of all time is just because I had this guide to help me get through the game, and without it, I probably would have felt like everybody else. So people that actually sat down and mastered the game with the guide, even though you had help, you know, in life there's times when you need help. And it's nice to be able to reach out to somebody and say, I need help with this, show me what to do. And they go, I got you covered, I'm Nintendo Power. So you're never gonna see this again. I remember getting the issues in the mail. I remember subscribing, and it was so exciting getting a new issue. I mean, the feeling that you would get, you'd open up the pages, you'd see all the codes, and you'd immediately flip to the top tricks and tips and see in the classified with the manila pages, and you would be able to see if there were any games that you owned that you had tips for. You got to review and preview some of the games that had come out, and most of the reviews in the early days felt very biased, and they felt more, you know, just pretty much buy anything. It's just such a shame that in an age where digital has reigned supreme, there was nothing that we could have done to prevent this. I mean, with 475,000 subscribers, you'd think that there'd be something that we could do, something that would be able to tell Nintendo, look, we understand, we got it, you know, times are rough, but Nintendo Power, just so sad. This was an issue I picked up. It was a NES tribute issue, and thought it was really good. It came out probably about a year ago, I'd say. No, 2 years ago, November 2010. This is one of their issues. This was the 260th issue. 260 issues. What magazine nowadays? Last 260 issues. And all the reviews that they had in the game, still there. A lot less biased. They even have some retro stuff. So they've got some retro stuff in there for retro games. Just going over all the greatest Nintendo games of all time. What's really awesome about Nintendo Power in the later years was that they started to come out with fan stuff. So they would come out with just going over like fans and the community. And this is so big that, you know, gaming is not just for kids anymore. And what's awesome is Nintendo realized that, and Nintendo Power, they started coming out with all this community run things, and it's really fascinating. I mean, I found out about some really awesome artists, like the Proto Men and the Megas, and all these great artists that I would have never found out about if I hadn't actually just been in the news, you know, the bookstore, flipping through Nintendo Power. Nintendo Power Advance, and this was right when the Game Boy Advance came out. They came out with this book that was basically a Game Boy. It's like this. It's like this, but for Game Boy Advance for the first couple games that got launched. So it's got information about Castlevania Circle of the Moon, which is really cool. So it's basically a strategy guide, a mini strategy guide. Tony Hawk, Rayman. So all the launch games came out with their own book. And it was really nice that they did this. So this is another great issue. And this is the last one that I have. I got rid of all my Nintendo Power years ago. I was moving, going from place to place, and I figured, you know what, I don't need them right now in my life. But I'm honestly thinking about rekindling those memories and getting them again. I absolutely loved when they did the comic book series. They had the Star Fox series. They had the Star Fox series. They had the Zelda series, which was my favorite. They had the Metroid series, and they had the Mario series as well. And the Mario series had a couple awesome runs. But getting those magazines and getting those issues, that's actually what got me back into comics at a very young age. I was into comics earlier, and then I stopped reading comics, and I started reading the Nintendo Power comics in the magazine. Going back way back in the day, even further back before they started doing those comics, they were doing the Nestor comics, the Howard and Nestor comics. Those were great. Always loved reading those. They were always pretty funny. You know, even reading them when you were a kid, they were kind of like, all right, haha, you know. I really liked what they did with the comics. I thought it was really just something to look forward to in each issue, is to have something where you can, you know, it's a cliffhanger every issue, and what was going to happen, you had no idea. What's nice is that the art was beautiful, the stories were great, they were fun, they were interesting to read, and we didn't really see it too much of a lot of that after Nintendo Power did it. So they really innovated for a video game magazine. They really came up with a lot of things that we didn't really see afterwards, and they tried new things, and some worked, some didn't. They had a lot of really great giveaways. I remember when you would be able to subscribe for things, and they would send you free guides and free things. So every year I would wait and kind of like, all right, let's see what's coming out, let's see what the new hip thing is. And they would come out with a guide, like a strategy guide, and you'd be like, all right, that's fine. But then they come out with Super Club, the cards, and you would get the cards and you'd be able to peel the cards out, and you'd have these collector cards of all these characters in the games, and that was really fun. Then they had the Chrome cover for the Mega Man X cover. That was awesome. I remember that was right around the time when I missed a subscription, and I was so pissed because a buddy of mine who actually ended up trading me that issue for another issue. I ended up trading that issue. I might even have traded a game for it just to get that issue. I may have traded a game. I don't remember specifically, but it was a big deal because it was a chrome cover. It was like a liquid, almost like silver liquid cover, and you open it up and you'd have the full cover with Mega Man X in it. So it was like a variant sort of cover. It was awesome. It was just so cool. I remember the 50th issue had the eagle, or the owl from Zelda, and it was gold. It was like gold, and when you opened it up, there was a poster inside that had every single issue, a little picture of every single issue, and the covers were always so lively and so great. We had so many covers that caused some controversy, such as the Castlevania 2 cover way back in the day in issue 2, I believe it was, and that cover made parents call in to Nintendo and say, this cover is freaking my kid out. And it's, you know, obscene. It's crazy to look at something like that where you had Dracula's head in Simon Belmont's hand, and you thought, you know, that's not a big deal nowadays, but back in the day it was huge. And I know it's so silly because it's a magazine, but it was a part of my childhood, and it was something that you could never replace with anything else. Just the feeling of getting a new issue in the mail every month was unbelievable. It was awesome. And we're never going to get that back. Part of the reason why I started doing journalism is because my goal it was eventually to write for Nintendo Power. When I was growing up, I was into art stuff and, you know, drawing. And later on in high school, I started writing reviews for the school newspaper for games. And I ended up realizing that this is what I wanted to do with the rest of my life, is I wanted to write about games. I wanted to produce something about games. And I have Nintendo Power to thank for that. If it wasn't for Nintendo Power, I would have never pursued this. I would have never started writing for Pixel Nation, would have never started writing for my school newspaper in high school, would have never started writing for RetroCollect.com, would have never started writing for Retro Gamer, for the online retro baits, and never would have written anything. I would have done something else. And even though life has had its ups and downs, I've always been able to look back and say, you know, this is something that I want to do. I would love, that's my dream job. I'd love to write for Nintendo Power one day, even though my skills may be there. But the job won't be there. So no matter when I perfect my craft and I get so good that I'll be able to go and do something like that, I won't be able to, because the dream is gone. Nintendo Power is done. And I don't know what else to say. I guess rest in peace, Nintendo Power. It's just sad.